So here we go, guys. Also, if there's any kind of like sound quality issues or whatnot, I'm sorry about production quality. I just do this as a hobby. I'm just a 2v2 player, and I know a little bit of the players here from the community, so I'm sorry if the production quality is really low. I just sort of slapped this together to be able to cast on this tournament because I'm always excited to see the community sponsor these 2v2 tournaments. But anyways, let's focus here on this team. In the bottom, we have Knight as the teal Zerg and his ally Lillekanin, the Danish Terran, and Mysticism in blue Zerg and Kyo, the orange Protoss, for the top team. So the Terran Zerg team are the ones that lost the first game. So this is the second game of the best of three series, and they decided to choose this map, Isle of Slaughter. And this is a very old school map. It's been around for quite a few seasons now in Heart of the Swarm 2v2 scene, and it's a great map because it's an S-shaped form. You have these rocks here blocking off the naturals, so if you want to rush early on, you have to go all the way around. And it usually means that early aggression is doable, but it's also scoutable and easy to defend. Now, in terms of the Terran Zerg, their choices, they can do a lot of different things. They can break down and do like a roach plus bio timing. They can also opt in to go another mutafeed, so bio plus mutafeed. Mech is incredibly strong here because you can defend all three bases here with Mech, and then you can PF this area here later on and start pushing over onto the top side here. So a lot of different choices here. Now, in terms of the Zergs, they're definitely just going to opt for a 15 hatch. I have no doubt here. The question here, for example, in terms of the bottom is which of these hatcheries is Knight going to go off? If he takes this hatchery, then he can creep spread for this one as well and can secure that side. But if he gets this one, he's mainly going to be creep striking for the front, and he's going to be probably expanding towards the upper left side. So it is actually very important to decide who gets what expansions of the naturals, because it sort of dictates, I guess, the general progression of each base that you're going to capture. So the way the bottom team has sort of positioned themselves, it looks like eventually in the late game, Lillekanin is going to be the one that's sort of going to move across towards the right side. And I guess that's sort of the way they spawn. It's not always the case, though, that you take the natural that's closest to you. Sometimes Zergs like to take the cross one for creep spread reasons. Again, because in the early game, if you get a fast third, it's probably going to be over here, and so you want to get your lings over to this position to be able to stop the lings from the top team flooding in. In the meantime, let's look a little bit at the Protoss here. We see that Protoss has decided to only go for one gas, so we're not expecting any early aggression. In fact, I'm just expecting a Corrin to expand here from the top team. He is making down a Zealot, sending that probe. The Zealot is there to just shoo away any possible scout or something of the sort while he positions down his Nexus. And it looks like Mysticism, the blue Zerg here, is delaying his gas a little bit more. He's just not even going to opt in to go for like some lings and speeds to get some map presence. Whereas we see the bottom team Zerg is getting a little bit of gas. He's starting to mine it. Not 3 quite yet, so he's not that eager to get his speed going just yet. I think because he saw here with this Overlord, he's starting to scout here to see these gases here. We see this sort of spore. I'm not exactly sure the purpose of this. This might be just like a little... he just wants to shoo away the Overlord. He can reposition this later on. It's not a big expense, but it does help in shooing away the Overlord. It's a little cute play here from the top Zerg. Also seeing 2 Reapers here. I didn't comment a lot on this build. This is actually a very important build here from the bottom team. We see here that he's using the trick where he gets the gas from his ally, and this is a very strong build that Lillekanin is doing here. The 2 racks with 1 reactor, and you get a lot of Reapers early, and there's a lot of options. It's very strong. It transitions very well. So you get that early pressure, and you can pick off some easy probes here and also get a full scout out. And it's great for this map, especially because there's a lot of ledges here. They can jump back and forth from the natural in and out. And we see now that we're down to 5 Reapers over here, and this is going to be dangerous really fast. And at the same time, he can transition out of this, starting to get his CC. And I've seen Lillekanin do this build recently. It's been a thing that he's been doing in the last season or 2, and we've seen a lot of different changes in the meta in terms of the way Terrans play when they're Reaper openings. Reaper openings are very favorable in a lot of the matchups here in 2v2, but it's all the small things like, are you going to cut the second supply? When are you putting down your CCs? Are you going to go for a third CC? Small things like this here, and we're seeing the +1 go down here, so he's really going to commit to this. and we're going to see how this pans out. So far, he hasn't really gotten a lot of pickoffs, but he has gotten a lot of scouting information. He saw that it's 3 gateways, and he also saw here exactly at what stage each player and the opponent team on top, what their tech is like, how they've sort of stabilized their static defenses and their unit comps. So this is really big, and what that does is it really allows his ally Zerg to do whatever he wants. He can sort of react to what the scouting information, and he's getting his gases rolling, he's got lair rolling, and he is getting the roaches. So what we're probably going to see is we're going to see that transition that I was talking about into that roach plus Medivac bio, and that's really strong because with the Evo chamber he might get those upgrades, and the roaches are going to be able to defend the bio in the front line while being healed by the Medivacs, which means that if they just barrel roll through the front here, it's going to be very strong. And he's already starting here to work on those rocks. So the Reapers are stalling, winning as much time as possible, making sure that Protoss is forced to make a few more extra units, doesn't chrono out as many probes as he would like, and just delay the tech of the top team. At the same time, we've seen that the top team is sensing that with that many Reapers, you've got to have a lot of barracks down, which means that you're probably going to transition into some bio play, which probably means that we need something to counter that. So he's getting his roaches as well, instead of opting for the Banes and Lings, and mainly because with the enemy Zergs, the Teal Zergs roaches is defending, your Lings and your Banes aren't really going to do too much, so you also need to get roaches of your own, which isn't a bad choice here, complemented with the Stalkers, the Blink Stalkers at the top. So we're seeing that little concave here in case there's like a run by or a little poke, but this is already a decently scared army for the bottom Zerg. We're already at 100 supply versus only like 80 supply, so 28 supply lead in terms of the roaches here. And the +1 is almost done, Stim is done, and the Medivacs are going to come in here for the bio, and so they're going to go. So they're already going, and the Medivacs are going to sort of trail behind, probably with a boost, because the timing is now. They need to go in before the Blink army starts becoming too big, before like any kind of other tech cranks out. And this roach here in bio is incredibly scary. Not too much bio here, but the Medivacs are on its way. Where are they right now? We're not seeing them just yet here. They're coming out, so he didn't have quite time to get them out. He's probably microing the Reapers a little bit too much. Those Medivacs might have helped a lot. We're already seeing the Nexus here cannon is forced to come down, and I might just say that the bottom team might have been a little bit too eager to push up here. You really want to wait for those 2 Medivacs to come in to heal the roaches before you waltz up here. I think they were really scared at the fact that the Stalker count was getting out of control, and with Blink it sort of counters these slow roaches because you can sort of kite them and poke at them and whittle them down. So maybe a little bit of misplay from the bottom team, but it's not too big because they have secured all their expansion here as well, and we're seeing just more units being cranked out. Mines here coming out as well from the reactor factory. Combat shield not quite on its way here, so maybe we're going to see a little drop play here, but until the top team relieves the pressure here, the bottom team is just going to be forced here to defend. A Stim, a nice concave here, but with this Blink, he's going to be able to just escape out of there. So a little bit of poking back and forth, some minor engagements, nothing too big just of yet. And we're going to see how both teams are transitioning here. We expect some of the Zergs to get their third bases rolling shortly here. Protoss putting down a Robo and get some Immortals rolling to be able to counter these Roach plays. You see what I'm talking about here. Look at these Medivacs healing these Roaches, and they're just not dying here. So the Roach versus Roaches are getting whittled down, but the Stalker count is just big. And these non-combat shield Marines with not too many Stalkers not too many Marauders rather, they can't do too much here. And the Mines are getting a few hits off, but it's nothing too big. So some back and forth poking. You want to make sure that the army of the opponent, if there's an opportunity to push through, that you can capitalize on that. So they're coming around here, and as usual, Knight always has these Overlords checking out for the thirds. This is a key thing in 2v2, is that you want to see the timings as to when the enemy team is transitioning. Sometimes, like in 1v1, given build orders, just from unit comp and unit quantities, that there's going to be a transition going on, because there's such cookie-cutter builds. But in these 2v2s, sometimes at this stage of the game, if you use, let's say the engagement doesn't go the way you want, you might have to little improvise, and you might have to cut some corners here and there. So always want to make sure that you sort of have a count on the eco and the tech status of your opponents. So some Bird Roaches coming in here, and they just trample or trace right under here the enemy team, and they're just going to waltz right into the main base here. There was not a full wall off here, And these roaches here are going to be kind of annoying because it looks like the bottom team want to come out and push out, and instead they're forced back over here to defend. At the same time, top team is now getting that Robotech rolling, and with Time Warp and Immortals, that could really be the tipping edge here. He's also getting the upgrades, so the Zergs are sort of on par in the upgrades. And once Protoss rolls his upgrades, Protoss upgrades are always really big and are a lot stronger than some of the Terran upgrades in this kind of situation. So both teams stabilizing here. We're seeing that both Zergs are trying to get their third. Interestingly enough, Knight decides to get his third over here, probably because of the creep again. If he gets this frontal base, he can start creep spreading, get a little bit more map vision and positioning, and then leaves this backspace over here, maybe with a planetary fortress from his ally Lillekanin the Terran. And this base is going to be picked off. There's nothing really the top team can do. If they try to defend here, he can just swoop into those medivacs and pull out. So instead, they decide here with the upgraded Roaches to just try to cut off the reinforcements, try to whittle down on the bottom team's streaming line of reinforcements. But they're going to get picked off here, so the Protoss team is going to have to come in here, and he does a blink right into the Bio Army. The Bio Army is a little bit out of position. He's not behind the wall of the Roaches, and he's sort of being spread around here by the force fields. They're not engaging too much, and it looks like the Protoss team is blinking over here to the right side. Nice concave here from the Terran Zerg team. Terran Zerg team army is much easier to replenish here. Every immortal that falls is so precious, whereas Bio is really cheap here. This is why Bio plus Roach is so strong on this map. And Colossus comes out here. Thermal Lance not quite done. It's might just barely be enough, but with those Medivacs are really healing Bio and Roaches alike, and it looks like all the Zerg units for the top team are almost dead. A few Hydras coming in here, but both teams losing the steam, and I think bottom team decides to pull out. Although they could have pressured a little bit just more, they want to save their Medivacs for the next engagement. Excellent job from both teams here. Looks like both teams stabilizing again, but the big thing here is that the bottom team has gotten their thirds rolling, whereas the top team is not. And we're coming into a stage of the game that really disfavors Protoss Zerg on this map, is that Protoss always struggles to get a good base, and once the main base gets mined out, these thirds here are very vulnerable, and it does get picked off, and he can maybe do a little drop here in the main with these Medivacs, but instead opts to come out, and they're keeping close tabs on the base up here at the top left. Hydra's getting mixed now into the army. Looks like both teams just sort of settling into macro. Bottom team is looking very scary, and the planetary fortress is coming down over here as well. +3 started here for the Protoss. And I'm not sure if this is going to be quite right. He needs a little bit more sentries here and more Colossi, and just needs more splash here from these Colossi, and at the same time he needs Immortals for the Roaches, so it's really hard in terms for the Protoss to dictate what kind of comp he needs here. It really depends on the angle, because we saw that sometimes the fights are fought where the Roaches are like a front line and the Bio's behind it, but in the last engagement we saw that the Bio was completely on one side and the Roaches were on the other, so depending on that, it could be very different. It looks like the Blue Zerg with all these Hydra really want to engage straight up onto the Roaches, and then once the enemy's Roaches here, Knight's Roaches, are dead, the Protoss army is better suited to dealing with the Bio. In terms of supply here, we're seeing that the bottom team is definitely having a big lead here, but it really boils down to these engages. The top team has less supply, but they do have the power of Protoss. These very resilient comps here. And a little bit of a run by oversaturation now at the natural as the main is being mined out. And the clock is starting to tick here for the Protoss player. Every second that passes is going to be in the bottom team's favor, and that's why they're really passive right now. They can just play defense game. They can just sit here at their front doorstep and just wait for the top team to come to them, and that's exactly what's going to happen, because the top team knows that they need to come in now. They need to deliver a punch or at least deny some bases. They're doing a little roach harass, pulling some Roaches from the bottom team out of position, and that's their moment to engage. The Vikings are now swooping in here, getting a lot of shots on the Colossi. The Colossi shooting not too much of the Bio, but at the same time some good force fields, and a lot of the Roaches here on the right side, Bio's here on the left side. Looks like the Colossus are shooting most of the Bio, but it's not going to be enough because a great surround, and it looks like the top team's army is just not well versed against this kind of comp. A lot of Marauders and Roaches are just so tanky and take so many shots, and the Colossus just didn't do enough money worth damage. It looks like the bottom team managed to clean it up, and that's going to be a GG. So, a great second game. It looks like the map did favor the Terran Zerg team. They picked it, especially because it favors Terrans strongly on Isle of Slaughter. So we're going to go into game number 3 here. Good job from both teams. And I'm curious to see now what Protoss Zerg is going to decide on the third map.